Live from Washington, D.C., it's the Pay Dirt Football Show.
Are you trying to give me the double talk?
You talk too much.
And now, sit back and listen to 2 hours of biased, brainless blithering sure to drop your sports IQ by at least 20 points.
7 years of college down the drain.
Pay Dirt is on the air.
Welcome, everyone, to the PSAFL edition of the Pay Dirt Football Show tonight. Mainly, we might touch on some PFL stuff here, PAFL stuff here as well, but a lot of it is going to be touching on the fact that we've got that free agent draft coming up. So now, let me go ahead and switch this screen over to give you the desktop here that we've got this on. Now, these words may be breaking up a little bit for you on this broadcast. Probably if you watch the rebroadcast, it probably won't. But we've got Calvin here that's going to read all this off to you anyway. So if you're listening live or if you're listening on the replay, listen closely to what Calvin has to say, because when is it, Calvin? Monday that we start the free agent draft?
I'm thinking maybe Sunday evening.
Okay. So you heard that, Sunday evening, so be ready for it. All right, take it away, Calvin.
Okay. Well, we got to welcome Joe. Joe's with us as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Hi, Joe.
Hello.
Before we just run away, just run over Joe.
Yeah.
I'm Silent Bob tonight. So.
So we're going to dive right in. And so I've got the document open, free agent bidding overview. And I'm looking at it on my own screens because mine is breaking up like Len mentioned. So we're going to start with the basics. And by Saturday, you've got to have your trade approved by both owners. And it's the last day to put in your cuts. And it is the last day before bidding begins to make your taxi squad assignments. So on an aside, though, when we're done with free agent bidding, you still have an opportunity to use Taxi Squad, but we can't have salary movement at all during the free agent bidding process. And that'll make more sense after I monologue here for 15 minutes, maybe 10. We'll see how fast I can go.
Real quick, I'll just throw this in. Taxi Squad after, but cannot be any of the free agents you signed.
Correct. That's one thing, so we might as well go there, that we're quite unique. We're not a let's get a free agent and then let's flip them. Any free agent you pick up, they're yours throughout the whole season. You cannot trade them, but you can cut them. We did modify that rule in the last year. You can cut them, that's perfectly fine, but you'll pay their salary. So you're not getting salary relief. So if you cut somebody with $1 million salary and pick up somebody with $1 million, I change that guy's salary to $2 million.
Yep.
So you're on the hook. These are guaranteed contracts. Again, we try not to make this a flipper's paradise. So we're trying to make sure you sign them, you like them, you keep them. That's the plan. So once we got that, if you want to participate in free agent bidding, and it's optional, if you want to come in today, Saturday, you must have less than 52 active players. Active players do not include players on your taxi squad. So if you want to participate by Saturday, be less than 52 players. Number 2 condition with that, you've got to have some cap space to fill those roster spots. If you cut to 50 players and you have 120 million, that doesn't work. You've got no space to sign those players. So you've got to have cap space to fill your roster to 52, and the minimum salary is $350K. My example, if you have 50 players, you can have like 119,300 or 119,300,000, but you get the gist of that, hopefully. So you got to have enough cap space to fill out your roster to 52 players when bidding ends. And I've tried to change the rules, clarify the rules is better. So if you look at this article online, I just made bullet points, and these bullet points are meant to encapsulate what the rules say, but this makes it black and white. Let's try to remove the fuzziness. So I've been working on this as I have some time. So number one rule come Saturday, you cannot have more than 800 pass attempts from all quarterbacks on your roster. If you do, I will remove one, and you may not be happy with which one I remove. And again, I don't want to have to do this. So if I sound kind of grumpy, it's not my job to do 28 teams. Number two, you can have no more than 540 rushes from all running backs on your roster. Again, this is black and white. There's been questions on this on Slack. What rushes count? What rushes don't? Here's the bullet points. As an aside, Len has updated the rules on our website. They have the same exact information now in our rules. The rules are longer, but I wanted to make it crystal clear when you have a question, read the bullet points. Number five was modified a little bit, but you have no more than 640 receptions on your total roster. That's every pass reception on your roster. This is not a problem. We've never had a team go over that, but that's the rule. Number six, come Saturday, you can have no more than one kicker with a 10 durability on your roster.
What if you have a 9 and a 10? You're allowed to have the 9 if you have one 10,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Okay.
So what Len is jumping down to, we'll get to Len in just a minute. Number 7 is you can have no more than one punter with a 10 durability on your roster. Now, number 8 was what Len was referring to. You are allowed to have 2 total kickers. You could have no more than 2 total kickers, but they both can't have a durability of 10. Same thing, you can have 2 total punters, but you can't have 2 with a durability of 10. Number 10, sorry. You can have no more than 3 total quarterbacks on your active roster. Again, active roster doesn't include taxi squad. And number 11, you can have no more than 4 total quarterbacks on your roster, which includes taxi squad. So what you need to do by Saturday is make sure you conform to all of these, because these are maximums. If you exceed them, players are removed. You have to conform to these limits. Why do we do this? We do not want hoarding. We do not want hoarding. We don't want you with 2 quarterbacks with 500 attempts and holding everybody captive. You've had a week here to trade them or drop them, but we're trying to make sure that players are available and that our other owners who need quarterbacks, who need something, are not extorted. You're not allowed to hold 3 kickers with a durability 10 and demand a number 2 draft pick. I mean, I've seen this in other leagues. So that's why these rules are there in the black and white. So make sure you look at your roster on Saturday and you conform to all of these items. Because what I have to do is make sure that everybody is in compliance come Sunday. And if you're not, you unfortunately have to be penalized. Because if I don't penalize people, they just let me clean up their mess for nothing, and it takes my time. So again, sounding grumpy, but that's the way it is. The second part of this article. Now we get to signing players during free agency. So we'll describe the process a little better, but pretend that you've signed player X. You've won the high bidder on this player. Here are things you've got to keep in mind, and this is going to be an echo of everything I just said. You will be awarded any player where you're the high bidder, except you're trying to sign a quarterback and they put you over 800 pass attempts on your roster. You cannot do that. What'll happen here? You'll lose all your bidding money and you'll lose that quarterback that you think you signed. So these maximums that I just mentioned still are into play from free agent bidding till the end of the season. You will not be awarded a quarterback if it gives you more than 3 on your active roster. And no, you cannot make drops of players during free agent bidding. Sorry, you cannot. You've got to plan it up front. Similar echo. If this quarterback gives you more than 4 quarterbacks on your roster, you will not be awarded them. If you try to sign a running back and they put you over 540 rushes from your running backs, if you try to sign a wide receiver, running back, tight end, or halfback, and it gives you more than 640 receptions, sorry, you don't get them. You can't sign an extra kicker. You can't sign an extra punter with a durability of 10. You can't have more than 2 kickers. I'm going fast here, but I hope you get the gist. The same 11 bullet items that you had to conform to go into free agency are the same rules throughout all free agent bidding. You cannot just keep going crazy and signing a bunch of quarterbacks. So I'll let Lynn and Joe comment if I went too fast on this or if this is clear.
No,
The
the only thing I want to say, there's a couple more points there. Are you planning to cover 9 through 11 as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So those are I skipped them though. That's the same thing, right? You can't sign a punter that gives you more than 2. You can't go over 52 active players on your roster. You got to make sure that you have the cap space, but we'll get into that because we have a brand new wrinkle for free agent bidding that I am very optimistic will make it even better.
Well, the one thing also, because I've been doing this with planning my own roster, is do not forget to go to the rules and look at how many of each player you need at each position. So in other words, okay, wide receivers right now are very popular. Personally, I think maybe next offseason we might want to put to a vote making the minimum number of wide receivers 5 rather than 6. Because there's some that have quite a few of those, but you go ahead and said, okay, I'm going to have 10 wide receivers. Well, just remember, you have to have 8 offensive linemen. You have to have at least 6 defensive linemen. You need at least, a total of 6 linebackers, though some can qualify as inside and outside. You need at least 80 defensive backs. You need at least 3 tight ends. In other words, all those other things. I think there were some teams that got penalized last year because they were focusing on the big ticket items, and then all of a sudden at the end of the when the season started, they had 5 defensive linemen. That's not going to work.
Okay, so we will come back to that. That's a good point.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. It sets the tone for people. So Lynn, if you can open the other article above this.
Okay.
And this is our free agent bidding rules. And so this is standard stuff. And some of these rules, you'll understand. We didn't use Strat Draft for this auction process initially in the PAFL, and it was kind of a mess. We had to manually do things, but here are the rules. You cannot bid lower than the listed salary in the game. You cannot bid higher than the amount of salary your team has or the excess cap space. And you cannot have more active bids than the total amount of money that you have for your team. Now, the good news is Strat Draft handles all of this for you. Once it's set up, you'll go in there and you'll see your team will have 20 million or 6 million or 50 million. You'll know your total amount of dollars. And then when you bid, it'll automatically do the banking for you. So Strat Draft will enforce that you don't have to worry about items 1, 2, or 3. It is all handled for you. You cannot go wrong there. It also makes my life a lot easier. Now, number 4, you're not supposed to have more active bids than open roster spots on your active roster. So if I'm Tampa Bay and I go into this bidding with 42 active players, I'm not supposed to have more than 10 bids open at any one time. Does Strat Draft enforce that? No. What can happen though, you can get yourself in a pickle that you can kind of try to circumvent this and put a lot of bids out, but you know what? You can get burned, and if you get burned, bad things will happen. It'll be like, okay, you lost a player that you bid on, and you obviously weren't being concerned about how many bids you have. I don't remember this being a problem. This was maybe a problem 2 years ago with somebody brand new and they fired like 25 bids, but it was obvious and they didn't know. That was fine. If you're new and you don't know, we will help you. If you've been here for a while, you should know better. Number 5, again, now this one is managed by Strat Draft. Now this says once 24 hours elapses without a new bid on the player, the highest bid wins. Now, Strat Draft has a limitation. It's really 23 hours and 50 minutes or 55 minutes, but that's just the way Strat Draft did. For all intensive purposes, it is 24 hours. And only carded players are in the free agent pool or are available. None of these uncarded players are not eligible. And we re-emphasize here, item 7, you may not drop players during free agency like other leagues can. You're stuck with your roster as you go in and how you come out.
And there's a reason for that, and the reason we've always used that rule is because if you could drop players as you're bidding on free agents or as you win free agents, then the free agent pool doesn't get enriched as much as it should be for teams to draft from, because you can just hoard your players and just go, well, I'll drop this player because I'd rather have that one.
You can maybe tell if you've been in our leagues a while, we're very concerned about the weaker teams.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that we do are for the weaker teams. Some of our rules, honestly, are bad for me, personally.
They've been bad for me before, too.
I mean, I get it. I mean,
not this year so much, but in the past.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a method to the madness. And that's that's the free agent bidding process. Again, don't want to freak people out. The main thing you got to be careful about is just don't put out 100 bids if you've got 2 players. I mean, I'm being exaggerating. Just try to be cautious with how many bids you have open. Again, now Strat Draft will show you where you're the high bidder. There's these screens. You can go look at your team, and it's kind of like we'll show you these are your active bids. So you can pretty much keep track of it as you go. It's again, Strat Draft is very slick for this. It's
yes, it is.
in the neck to set it up.
It's very good, and I'm amazed sometimes going to that screen how fast people will overbid me.
Yes, you know they actually have something that I've never played with, and it's like an eBay bidding where I think that it's set up that when somebody outbids you, you can have it automatically up the bid.
Huh.
I've never done it, and you got to poke around. I've learned Strat Draft just by trial and error, but it does a lot of nice nifty things for you. Now let's talk a little bit more about this. I'll call it 24 hours elapsing. So here's what's going to happen. The first day, I'll say Sunday night, you're going to see these 200-ish players with salaries of $750K and up. You're going to see them all on the screen, and that goes live. So what we're looking for then is a bid. So the first bid will start the tick timer, and that player will, it goes 24 hours, 24 hours, 24 hours. But say there's 100 of these players and they don't get a bid at all the first 24 hours, they will disappear from the screen. They will be gone. But don't despair, because what happens, I track that and I will reload them a second time and give them another chance at life, depending on how the bidding goes. And once they did disappear a second time, I will reload them one more time. So every player will be up there for 3 times. And after that, then we move on to other players. But I just want to emphasize that unfortunately, the way Strat Draft is set up, if a player doesn't get a bid at all for 24 hours, they disappear. Right. That'll be some of the semantics. And now for the wrinkle. I think this will be better. This first time we're trying this would really help in the PAFL. When we're totally done with free agent bidding, so if you signed a player for $20 million, last year when we did this, you were stuck with a player for $20 million, something that Joe hated, and I get it. I mean, we were just stepping in there. So you signed, I think ETN was $20 million maybe for Don, running back. And you can imagine that kind of makes their whole salary, makes their team pretty weak. There's $20 million on a player that really in the game, his salary was $5. So this year what we're doing, at the end of free agent bidding, the salary for the player that you signed, like ETN in my example, will go back to the game salary automatically. And therefore, the team can still make roster moves. So again, just think of this, your cap dollars going into free agent bidding. It's almost like Monopoly money this year. You're bidding, you get the players, you sign them, and then they're yours. And when you run out of bidding dollars, okay, so be it. But then the free agents that you signed will have the game salary in it.
Yeah. Yep.
And one thing I didn't mention, once we're done bidding, when everybody's done, this is what happened kind of last year. They're pretty much done. You can pretty much just send a list of players that you want to claim. It's kind of like a free claiming period, and you'll just sign a player without having to go through the bidding process. I think last year there was a handful of players at the end where a few teams still needed players, no need to bid. You send me a list and you get Joe Blow and we just put them on your roster. And then that's the total end of the free agent bidding process. But again, on this screen, what we emphasize, free agents signed during the bidding process cannot be traded until the conclusion of the season. So we'll let Joe and Len comment there while I'm going to pull up the rules so that we can go what Joe was mentioning.
Well, for me, it really doesn't change anything except makes your team more easy to manage through the season, because you're still only to bid on what you have salary to bid on. But then,
Yes.
of course, some teams in the past have run into the situation where they bid so much on a running back or a wide receiver, and then during the season they get injuries and they're going, oh my, I don't even have $50,000 left. So what this
Yes.
does is it opens things back up so you can sign the scabs when you get injuries.
Exactly. It's a lot more flexible.
Yeah.
And again, it helps the weaker teams too, that if they want to trade, they can. I'll keep picking on ETN. Don had ETN, I think, 20 million. That kind of handcuffs you on trading.
It handcuffed
Well, if you had
me.
him for
Yep.
five-
Yep.
Yeah,
that-
it'll kill you.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, you could almost call this the Don rule, because I guarantee you, with Don having the season that he's had in the PAFL towards the deadline, he might have liked to have gotten an extra D lineman or two or something like that, and made some trades with some teams that were out there. But he couldn't do it because he was up near
Yes,
the cap
you were capped.
artificially.
Right. And I would say it's not really necessarily the Don rule. I think it's just, I can say me personally, just thinking about it, and we've been having discussions on Slack over a year or so, and it's like, how can we make this better? And, you can call this the Kansas City rule and the PAFL. A lot of teams, the really weak teams with the most money signed the best players, but they really couldn't do anything else because they were stuck, in salary cap misery with, for a year before they got relief. So now we'll go to what Joe talked about. So I'm on the rules page. You have to find that. And this is under position requirements. And, the quarterbacks, the running backs, we've already talked about the maximum rushes, but there's also like the minimum amount of rushes. And I tried to make things clear in the rules. Like all teams will have a minimum of 3 running backs, must have a minimum of 220 rushes, but no more than 540 from running backs, added in red, so you can always see the changes. You need 3 tight ends, 3 halfbacks, 6 wide receivers. So I'll stop here and mention a few things. As far as free agent bidding, you can, if you want, you can come out of free agent bidding and you still might be missing a wide receiver or 2 or 3. You still have 1 more week after free agent bidding for trading, and you can do some trading. And if you're totally done with free agency, you can still sign what we call an in-season free agent. So you're free to pick up a wide receiver if you want that way. But I think what Joe was also emphasizing is during bidding, I think it is wise to look at these position requirements to make sure you don't end up with a super scab that you didn't realize you needed an extra wide receiver and you get some $350K guy with no receptions because you didn't know you must have 6 before we start the season. So pay careful attention on that, the 6 wide receivers. And again, we talk about the 160 minimum receptions, and the minimum receptions does not include running backs listed in the rule. The 640 does include all the positions. Again, trying to make the rules much clearer than they were. I'm not going to repeat the kicker and punter rules, are all the same. And now when you get down here to number 11, this is what Joe was emphasizing. Your offensive line, when we start the season, you have to have 8. And of those 8, you gotta have 2 centers, 3 guards, and 3 tackles. Now, I did have a question presented to me on Slack. What about people at multiple positions? If you look down a couple lines below 14, it says players rated at multiple positions will count towards those positions for which they are rated. But notice you have to have 8 offensive linemen total. We're not going to be like some leagues where I've seen where they get by with like 6 linemen and they just kind of play some shenanigans. Now you got to have at least 2 people rated at center, 3 guards, 3 tackles. Joe, I believe, mentioned defensive line. You must have 3 tackles and 3 defensive ends. Now, maybe our rule is a little soft here because you can play some shenanigans on this. You don't have to have a total of 6. Maybe I'll change that next year. So you could have like D linemen, and you could maybe get by here with 4 or 5 if you want to play that skinny. But you gotta be careful with all the fatigue in the game. You might be like the Rams in the PAFL where they got down to like 2 defensive linemen due to injuries. So you want to be careful with that. Linebackers, you got to have at least 2 rated at inside linebacker, at least 4 outside. Now, once again, you could have just a linebacker rating and they would count in both. That's just the way the rules are. But that's that. Defensive backs, you got to have 8 total. 4 cornerbacks, 3 safeties, but still you need 8 total. And everything I've just been squawking about here must be met by the start of the regular season. And we track that throughout the season. It's once in a while something will happen. Well, you'll make a trade and you may not realize you just traded a tight end and you don't have 3 anymore. You'll have to pick up a tight end in that scenario. So that's the Calvin monologue. I believe that covered everything I had off the top of my mind. Joe or Lynn? Thoughts?
No, nothing here. I have been able to catch up with things this week where I was falling behind for a while. So
yeah, Dallas looks pretty nice, PSAFL, but we'll see. So we got, looks like 10 minutes on our timer. I didn't know what y'all wanted to do. Did y'all want to talk PAFL? Did you want?
I did want to make a comment.
Go ahead.
Kudos, Len, to your improvements on the site, particularly on the standings.
Oh.
For some reason, when I would always look at that on my phone, it would be like a jumbled mess.
Yep, and I actually wanted to mention something about that, what I'm doing differently about that, and that's going to be used for both leagues from now on. What I used to do is just simply print out the reports from the game, which is very basic, very colorless, and put links to them. Well, what I've done this time is I have set up stats and standings images. So what you're seeing there, and I can make them bigger, and I can make the background dark, and the letters white, which gives it a little bit of color. Like I said, it just makes it easier to put up there, and makes it easier to read. It's just more appealing for the site.
Well, that, and plus also you had the leaders in the different categories. Basically, you were taking a lot of the good stats that were off of the game,
right?
And very kudos on that. I was like looking at that today, and I was going, "Dang, that looks good." So.
Yeah, Len does an outstanding job. I notice we get comments when I post on the action site like, "Wow, that website is impressive. I might give this league a shot." So that's all Len, people. Len does this.
I've always had that belief since back in the old Football Pro days. I guess you guys remember the old Football Pro games, Sierra Sports. And back then, there were leagues everywhere, but their websites were really boring, and all they kind of did was play their game and send their files, and I thought that was just lacking. So when I created the ECCFL, the first thing I did is make a better website and include a bunch of articles, which we still do to this day because people love the articles, and no one else is doing it. So it ensured that the ECCFL stayed full. Then I did it with PayDirt when we first went to Madden, 2000, I guess, just regular 2000, 20 years ago. And it stays full, too. I mean, here lately, because of the lack of EA Sports to do anything right, it's been a little harder. But they're just horrible over there to get nothing right. But, DK Sports, I really hope that Dave starts to add something different, because we've been going through this with the, I bought my game again this year, but it's not going to have too much different with it than what it's been from last year and the year before and the year before, except updated rosters. What I'd really like to see him do, and I've been hounding this with people for, I don't know, years now, it would be nice if he would allow us to log into a game being played and just get the text of it, like the play-by-play. Mm-hmm. Something that people could log in and see the play-by-play of the game as it happens. If he would set something up like that, I could probably set up something on the website where those games play-by-play logs would be broadcast live on the site. But he needs to do it before I can do that.
Yeah. It seemed like his price was maybe a little lower this year, and
No,
so I'm
I
not
think
expecting much.
It's the same. I always get the
enhancements.
discount, but
It seemed like $5 less, though. I think what I pay 34 this year. It seems like I thought I used to pay 39. But I could
it
be-
is $39, but there's always a discount for those of us that's been here for a while. That's probably what you remember, and you've probably always got the discount, and you're just forgetting.
Yeah, that could be me. I'm getting to the age of forgetting.
Oh my goodness, man! I'm 65, and that's why I've got so many doctor's appointments now. Shit is breaking down.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's only so many miles. But I'm with you on the league. Like I'm about to slam a league here, but like our primary competitors, like for a real season, is the UFFL. They're playing now.
Mm-hmm.
And I just look at their website. And I look at our website. I'm like, this is no comparison. Y'all should really look over here. We look at their rules versus our rules. I mean, their cap's like 130.
Ooh,
And you
wow!
can trade out. You can trade out of it.
Well, some
I mean,
people, some people like
it's
that.
a wonderful league for me, though, Lynn. If it wasn't dying, I mean, I could smoke that type of rule. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's just slowly. I mean, they lost a few teams. I don't wish them bad, but
No,
it's
I don't
hard
either.
for-
And I
it's
don't
hard
like.
for me on action when they because we're usually advertising at the same time. It's hard for me on the action site to like, dude, just take a look.
Yeah.
Go to the website.
I mean,
Look
I've
at the
always
action.
been one to. I don't like to slam any other league. And when someone in our league says, "Hey, can I post this league?" I always say, "Yeah, why not?" We're out as a community to support each other to keep the game going strong. So I'm all for all that. But I always want to be number one. I want our league to be number one.
And I'm with you. I mean, I don't even think it's close, honestly. Even the PAFL, I don't think it's close. I mean, I know these other leagues, MAFA, and I played in MAFA. I mean, I know these other leagues. I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
But I guess I will get off the high horse of bragging.
Yeah.
But I really, but it's too bad. That you maybe didn't see this post on the DK site. We're like, man, this is an awesome website. I might be interested. I don't know if you actually follow through or not.
I don't know. I've gotten several posts over for applications for the PFL. But they can always make the mistake and just click the wrong league. When you fill out the application, you have the opportunity to say, do you want the PFL, PAFL, or PSAFL, and it explains what these leagues are.
Well, we've got some awesome owners in. It was painful to lose both of the mains just due to real life and not enough time. But some of these guys, Colin, I played with Colin in an APBA league long.
Yeah, what
ago.
happened to the mains again? Why are they gone?
They was the way explained to me, just time.
Oh,
They got too busy. They dropped a fair amount of leagues.
yeah. Well,
my understanding.
Ken, I know from just chatting with him when we play games, he's a new father. He's a new dad.
Okay.
So I told him, it's like I totally and completely commiserate with that.
So he's that
I was
young.
an action Yeah,
Some
I
of these
mean,
guys are young. He's
Wow.
young. Sean's young. I mean, they're kind of outliers on our demographics.
yeah, because
This
most of
game
us
in
that
10
play,
years.
most of us that
we're
play
like into
action,
50 plus.
we're all old geezers. So
I like I told Ken, it's like, look, I played this game a long time ago, and then my sons were old enough; they were in scouts. I was a scout leader, and I didn't play this game probably for a good 7-8 years. And I just dropped out because I was doing other stuff. And I told him, it's like, this is an incredible game. It's a lot of fun. You meet a lot of good people and all of that, but can't get back that time with your kids.
right.
You know,
No, you can't.
There's a choice.
No, you cannot.
If you got a choice, do that. you'll grow older and wiser, then you come back and kick our ass again. So yeah.
I remember my first league I was joined. The first league I was in, it was the last year of John Elway. That's how long I've been playing. That was an APBA league.
I've been playing since '95 in online leagues.
Yeah, this was online as well.
Yep. Anyway, we're running short, and I wanted to make another observation that I just made here in the last 2 or 3 minutes. If we can figure out how to do this, maybe take the break that we used to take and do the longer show. This, banter that we did at the end tonight, it's refreshing because we're down to business so much with the short shows that we kind of forget the banter sometimes. So maybe we can figure out how to, get that better.
Yeah, it works for me. I mean, now it's pretty good. I mean, I am coaching volleyball, but that's like on Wednesday and Saturday, so I can work around that because we're racing our granddaughter. But yeah, as long as we pick the right nights and this Wednesday, Thursday works, and we could do the banter and hopefully it doesn't bore people. But I like talking to you guys.
Yeah, definitely.
There's absolutely no way I could coach volleyball. I have a vertical of like about 2 inches.
Oh.
I'm
Yeah,
a
I noticed that.
basketball
Me
coach.
too.
They didn't have anybody, so I said, well, I'll watch my granddaughter play a year.
I've lost
I'll
20
try it.
pounds, and I noticed that I could jump more than 2 or 3 inches, but not much more than that.
Well, I found that 20 pounds there.
Yeah.
So you guys will laugh if we banter. I also coached the elementary school girls basketball team, and the school, they did a game at the end, coaches versus the varsity boys. And they asked me to play, and I'm like, hey, if you're looking for somebody with a 2-inch vertical,
I
could be your man.
That's
but
me.
it was fun. I didn't hurt anything. It was a fun game.
All right, we are out of time. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Yes.
That's all, folks.